everybody, welcome to the show. It's Dirtycakes live at 5. So great to see you. Today we're going to have on the show Mr. Jeff Nolan, old personal, great friend of mine. He is the man behind so many awesome things. We'll get into it. He's responsible for all the things on the wall at every hard rock around the world except for Vegas, and has been in so many really awesome bands over the years, from I Love You to, well, we'll get into all sorts of things. But anyway, thank you so much for checking it out. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends and do whatever else. Remember, we are not only here on Instagram every Wednesday and Friday at 5 p.m., but we're also on YouTube, and you can catch us now, the podcast audio version, on iTunes and Spotify and all those other things. So anyway, we're going to get Jeff Nolan on in here one second. Super excited. Our charity for the month is going to be ACLU, so feel free to donate anything you can. Check it out. And without any further ado, here, we'll have Mr. Jeff Nolan. And in the background right now, we've got a song called Oxblood from this amazing band called, Plague Vendor. How you doing, Jeff?
Charlie, young Charles, how are you?
You look great, man. How you doing in Florida this fine Friday?
It fucking sucks, dude.
I hear you.
It's Florida. We live in Hey, Allie.
Hey, Jeff.
I'm in shitty Florida, and we live in uncertain times. And, but I mean, my issues with it are not any heavier than anybody else's. So I'm probably feeling a lot like you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are being ransacked by Allie here, who has...
Yeah, in perfect bummed out fashion, I'm here to bum everybody out. But just was wondering...
I have one of those mugs,
Question, Jeff Nolan.
I do have one of those.
And I was just wondering if you had an answer for us.
Can I tell this story first?
Oh, please.
So... Charlie and Allie send out wedding invites or save the date, and they did it in a very elaborate way. And so out of the blue, I got this poster tube situation in the mail. I'm like, what the hell is this? Open it up, and it's a gigantic poster of Charlie and Allie. And they is like, oh, wow, check this out. A few days later, I get this really elaborate book that's like the story of their love. And I'm like, man, they're going all out here. And then about a week after that, I get a mug. And it's like, wow, guys, you had me at the poster. I appreciate all this. And then so I'm talking to Charlie, and yeah, I guess it turned out Shutterfly screwed up. And all these things were supposed to go to different individuals, and they all came to me. So I sent off the book, but I kept the mug.
There you go.
You know what? We actually got 2 more of these because Shutterfly just screwed up and overcorrected their error. So
yeah,
now I'm asking myself to be in the wedding party. But most of all, will you?
Well, yeah, of course I will. Okay. I mean, was there some sort of response involved here? I missed that part.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
Crashing anymore. I'll see you next July.
Yeah, fair enough, Allie. Cheers, darling.
There you go. So yeah, man, you're in Florida. Yeah,
I am.
Oh yeah. So let's see. We got people jumping in here. So anyway, for those who don't know, because why would you know? Jeff and I go back a very long amount of time. I'm sorry, I was distracted. Also, credentials from Plague Vendors on here, which is a great story. I'd love for you to go over at some point in time, because it is. And whenever I tell the story about whenever I go to a Plague Vendor show or I talk to people about it, it somehow parlays into this adventure of the story that you told me about you finding Plague Vendor. And for y'all that don't know, Plague Vendor is a band that you need to listen to. So without any further ado, check them out. They're the future.
Well, I mean, saying I found Plague Vendor is not, I mean, that's giving me way too much credit. I found them for myself. Yeah. I saw them on stage. I was like, oh my God, what the hell is this? They were well on their way long before I ever met them. I didn't have anything to do with that. But I became friends with them. I saw them play live at the Warped Tour, and I was working a stage that the company I was working for had, and I was so jaw dropped. I had not gotten that excited about a brand new rock and roll band in many years. And to this day, they're my favorite contemporary rock and roll band. And I actually think they just get better and better. But, you know, we stayed friendly, and they were doing a gig. Shit, it might have been that same day that I encountered them. They were doing a gig, and I had a hotel room that the company was paying for. It was kind of nice, actually. And all the guys came and were partying in my room, and they completely decimated my mini bar. And if you've ever knocked out the mini bar in a hotel, it's a little spendy. And Brandon and I were sitting in the window of my hotel because it opened a little bit, and we were trying to smoke cigarettes out the window.
Sure.
And we had all these laminates on from from backstage. It was just all the laminate bullshit you get. Yeah. And for some reason, we still had them on, or I did. And I was like, man, fuck these credentials. And I was like pulling them off. And Brandon immediately takes his phone out and just starts going, fuck your credentials, we're presidential. And when Blood Sweat came out and that song was on there, I couldn't believe it. Like, oh my God, this is from my windowsill hotel room. It was another rock and roll story for the pile, you know?
Oh,
it was good.
It's such a good one. I think... it's funny. I saw them at a show, and I was telling that story to somebody else, and our player came up to me and was like, oh, "Wait, you know Jeff?" Because I guess like while that was happening, also somebody basically did the bass part or the guitar part into a phone while all that was happening. Or, like, it was written on.
They effectively wrote the song right then and there.
Yeah,
it was fabulous.
Fabulous, and it's a banger. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, yeah, man. So. I really enjoy it. So what we've been doing with this thing too, with this Dirtycakes Live at 5, just been talking to a lot of folks. We got Dave Catching on, we got Craig Hetson next week, and we're just talking with a lot of people. And part of it is like, we're at this time where we can't really do shows. And like, one of the things that's most enjoyable for me when like, not just being on stage, one of the most fun things about, old rockers getting together is we just have all these damn stories. And I love like, that thing about like, you're talking with that, being in the hotel room and basically the song getting written there, right? And, like you are a man who I feel like has turned your ability to storytell and be a nerd into a complete profession. And you are elite of the elite level of when it comes to rock and roll stories and just portraying just the fun side of all of that background stuff. I thoroughly enjoy so much of it. I think I've copped at least half a dozen stories off of you, and I tell them as I was hanging out with Jeff Nolan, and he told me the story of the night Jimi Hendrix died, or like.
Well, I mean, it becomes oral folklore, man, and I mean, I've gotten lucky over the years of being able to, kind of use that skill. But I think that these things are important. I don't want to sound too precious about it because it all stems from a bunch of nerds getting together and, telling fish stories.
Yeah.
But there's something really significant about that, I think. And I think it goes to the whole way that rock and roll music is. It becomes its own sort of oral tradition, its own oral history. And the stories become as much a part of it, at least for me, as the music. I mean, not as much, but yeah, I think you get my point.
Well, I mean, Zeppelin's great, but the story of whipping the girl with the shark, I mean, that's just next level.
That's horrific. It's horrific. But it's like things that I'm really interested. I find myself a lot lately being interested in the nerd factor of rock musicians, and I've been sort of fixated on that for a while. Of how many artists really, if you strip away the cool guy thing of being, a musician, are really big dorks.
Oh yeah.
And there's something endearing to me about that, and something kind of genuine. And I think that we're all, not all of us, but to a large degree, we're one step away from playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
and it's cool to me. I love that.
No, absolutely. I love it too. And there's so much of that. You know, the more and more people that I get to see is growing up with this thing. And just being a guy that happens to be in a room with other people, right? Like, I mean, I'm in a band with two people that have quite the pedigree. And there's some of the, well, Becky's not so much of a nerd, but Rick is a huge, I mean, so in the band,
Becky is not a nerd.
no, Becky's not a nerd. Although I did have an amazing moment last night. I got to teach Becky how to silk screen a t-shirt. Somehow, in all of her years of punk rock, nobody ever taught her how to make merch. And so now that we're out of work and she has nothing to do with her day, she's like, God damn it, Charlie, teach me how to. So I made like a silk screen and whatever. You know, she's like chain smoking on her back porch, just sitting in there, just doing stuff. And so we spent like 45 minutes last night showing her how to make merchandise. And so she came by on her motorcycle today. And she's now going to take care of all the merch, all the enamel pins and the stickers and making shirts and all sorts of stuff. I showed her like, all right, now when you go down to Santee Alley, like I took a screenshot of the Google Maps, like the street view, and had to like go like, here's the shop. And if you go to the back room of this one, you can get baseball tees that fall off the back of a truck. And this is where they make all the ones that you can buy outside the concert venue for like $5 for the high quality, super soft ones. This is their source because I spent 2 weeks pounding the pavement. So she is completely into it. But Rick, you know, who was the lead guitar player in the English Beat for like a decade, huge nerd. Like
I didn't even realize that about Rick until recently.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I'm sort of 1 degree of separation from that world myself through John Ernst and Dave Wakeling.
Yeah.
And I just never put 2 and 2 together on that.
Yeah. And even when
we all have gaps in our knowledge.
Yeah, even in our authority, he was still doing like tech work for Wick, did he? And he still does. Like they're great friends, and he's doing stuff like Rami and all these other guys because he has his other band, Supreme Beings of Leisure, with half the backup band from like, it's crazy, and they're all just like, if you can interrupt them long enough from their video games to get them to pick up the guitar and then slay something, like it's an accomplishment. But I'll go over to Rick's to like work on equipment, and I've got to let him like finish the level, right, or like whatever the thing is, like it'll be spent 45 minutes because he's got to like finish the puzzle first, and then he's gonna eat food, and then we're gonna sit down and do stuff, right? There's something about nerddom and making food that most rock stars that I know just
yeah. And then either that or then they stop doing drugs and they start working out like really obsessively.
Oh yeah,
I'm looking at you, Charlie.
Hey, you know. I have lost 10 pounds during COVID, and I am marrying a Pilates instructor. So, yeah, it does come with the territory. But
I've seen that a lot over the years. You know,
it's coming together. It's coming together. You know, yeah. You know, talking about other stories. One of the things that I recently found out about you, I guess I kind of knew it, but I never put 2 and 2 together, was the background of you with the Screaming Trees and like how like that whole timeline was. I didn't realize how much a part of like recorded material or like touring that you'd ever done. I figured you like stepped in for a couple of shows. I didn't realize that like it was a little bit more than that.
Yeah, that was an unusual time. I was on the in the studio with them for their last studio album, Dust, and I had ostensibly, I don't know, joined-ish the band. It was hard to tell back then.
Sure.
We were all really fucked up, like me and Lanigan particularly. You know, I played on it. I'm on a couple of the songs that made it on the final mix. I know I'm on Dime Western. We did a thing with Ben Montench and Mike McCready. All right, that's like my big recording memory from it. There was a moment where it was me, Mike, and Benmont, and we were at I think we're at Sunset Sound. I don't know. We were at one of the big, you know, like iconic LA studios.
Sure, yeah.
And I roomed with Lanigan during that at the Oakwood of all places.
Okay.
And it was, you know, I mean, it was just, it was very classic mid-90s rock and roll guys. We were, Mark and I in particular were not, we weren't exactly solid citizens.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
And I know for me personally, I certainly squandered whatever opportunity that was because of that. And really did not give them my full Jeff Tripp or, capabilities. I had an exchange with Gary not that long ago on social media to that effect, you live and learn.
Yeah.
And it's I do know during the brief time I was in that band, I was the shortest guy in the band, and I'm 6'2".
Yeah, that's terrifying. Like, to think about that, like, that has got to be. I think, what is it? Tad is a ton of band, right? Like,
Yeah.
guys, they're like 2,000 pounds, right? They're all, and yeah. To know that, like, I think Josh Homme joined that band, and he was still like the second shortest.
He did. Josh came in right after me.
So Josh was your effectively like the tour replacement or whatever after that record for Dust?
Yeah, well, I mean, replacement isn't maybe the nice word or the proper word for it. I think that Josh was just the guy that was the better fit.
Sure.
And I mean, and the proof's in the pudding. It's Josh freaking Homme. I mean, obviously the guy is amazing.
Yeah.
I have for a while there, I had this weird thing where I would be in a band for a while, and then I would be replaced by somebody amazing and legendary. The Trees with Josh Homme. And then when after the Scott Weiland band, the person who replaced me in Scott's band was Daniel Lanois. It's like, wait a second.
This is
It's like I'm sort of like that classic guy where I've got all this, all these guys in LA who have they had this like sort of did okay band, and then they have all these stories of back in the day of these legendary groups that opened for them.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. It's like, I was in that band and then so and so replaced me and they became gigantic.
Yeah.
I've got a few of those.
Yeah, you remember like the night Nirvana opened for you or something like that. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's no shortage of those stories in LA of people who are like, of my generation. Everybody's got those stories. That doesn't make me in any way unique. I mean, Pearl Jam was opening for us when they were still called Mookie Blaylock. And again, lots of people can tell that same story.
Yeah.
But it's still worth telling.
That's so mind blowing though, because like, I think one of the reasons I got the idea for this was we were doing a festival and we were in the van for like hours and hours and hours driving to like, Big Bear or something like that, right? I think it was Idlewild. We were doing an Idlewild fundraiser festival. And I was in the car with Becky, right? And there's a guy that came along who's just basically a super fan that he like worked the merch table and just sat there in the middle seat with Becky. And Becky's in the back just screaming stories across. And this guy's sitting in the middle and just like for what is old hat to people and they think is just like kind of fun or interesting. She's like, yeah, I remember, we were sitting in Reading and there's this really tall, lanky guy. And as soon as we walked in, and all the reporters like abandoned that big guy and came talk to us. And he's like looking at us all unhappy. And it's like, it's apparently just like the time that she like broke Billy Corgan's heart because she stole all the attention in the room. You know what I mean? It's just like, as somebody that grew up listening to the 90s, and I think, like I knew your guys' band. I knew your band back before I ever met you, and I think it's so interesting to be like one step removed from that thing, because what is so mundane and boring to some people is just also so incredibly hard to wrap your mind around for others, because I think that if you're not there, then it's just, it takes some calling this folklore to what you're talking about. And I think that folklore
really
is half of what rock and roll is, man. I mean, because at the end of the day, I'll never be able to see Led Zeppelin in concert. I'll have no idea what the Doors were like on stage, right? But the recordings and the folklore and the legend and like what people build around it is so much bigger than who the person is, right? Like a larger than life thing. That's what the rock stars are. I mean, it's this personality that can fill a room based purely on
froze up on me, chicken. There you are.
Yeah. So like with that in mind, I think like, another fun story, and not that I'm just trying to like, pull stories out of your hat, but you're reminding me of fun stuff, was I think the biggest story that from you that I quote, not terribly accurately, but I do my best because I was also not necessarily in the best way when you told it to me, was us recording when you were in my studio recording with the Ludes, and we went out to I think, get like some cigarettes or a drink or something. We ended up at this gay bar, and we were asking like, "Hey, can we get a
Yeah. It was a fun day.
yeah?" And the guy was like, "We only serve wine and spirits." And we like looked around, and we realized there's a giant pride flag over the pool table. We're like, all right, wine and spirits it is. Let's go. And then we went back to the studio. You told me this story of like how you were in the studio with "I Love You," and the drummer from Cream is there. And he basically steals a joint and then blows your mind about Jimi Hendrix. And it's like, to me, it's not just the story of the night that Jimmy died, but it's this whole experience that usually takes me a good 15 minutes to get out. But I love that story. So
Ginger, when Ginger was in Masters of Reality, and I imagine Dave Ketching's got, some good stories about this as well. When Ginger was in Masters of Reality, Chris Goss was producing "I Love You's" All of Us album, and we were at Sound City. And so Ginger was just there almost every day. He would just be sitting in there, sitting in the control room couch, smoking weed. And there was one time when we were I actually wound up recording with him. I did a thing with Ginger and Chris Goss. I just got a cassette of it recently. I'd been looking for it for years. I'll try to send it to you.
Okay.
But our singer had rolled this big old Bob Marley joint because, we're going to have a joint doob circle with Ginger Baker. And so he lights it up and gets it going and hands it to me. And I take my hit. I hand it to Ginger. And Ginger takes like 7 hits on this thing. And then he does this, licks his fingers, puts the joint out, puts it in his shirt pocket, and goes, "I need this for me pain." And there were still like 4 people left in the circle. And so it was like this weird moment where it's like you want to just go, "Look, motherfucker," but it's Ginger Baker, and he was our hero.
And plus,
Chris derailed the tension by saying, "Ginger, we're going to let you have that one for Sunshine of Your Love." And then he got kind of you could tell he had a little crisis of conscience, and he decided to throw us a bone by telling us a story. And he said that one night he and Mitch Mitchell were in London, and they were going to go see Sly and the Family Stone play. And Ginger had gotten a hold of some pharmaceutical cocaine, or as Ginger said it, pharmaceutical. And so they're doing this blow, and Mitch says, "Hey, we got to find Jimmy. He's going to want to get in this bag before we meet at the gig," because Jimmy was going to meet him at the Sly and the Family Stone gig. So they look around for Jimmy. They're making phone calls or whatever you do in 1970, and can't find him. Turns out it's the night Jimmy died. And so Ginger said, Hendrix died of a downer overdose, and if I had found him with this blow I had, it would have evened him out, and we'd still have him to this day. So the moral of the story is Jimmy didn't die of drugs; he died of lack of drugs. I found out. I told that story so many times, and it became like we were talking about earlier about oral history. It's like when Ginger told that story, it was a type of performance. And not so much right now, but I have told that story to you, many, 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 many others over the years. It's a type of performance. It's a type of handing down a human history. Yeah. I found out many years later that that was one of Ginger's go-to stories. Oh. And it's funny because it became one of my go-to stories. And I love to hear that it's been a story that you've told a few times. It's like that's the greatest thing in the world to me. That's how it should be.
No, absolutely. And that's why, to your point about being like the nerd and about folklore and about all this, the memory of everything, I take pride in the fact that and that story probably evolves to every person, because when you're telling it's you saying, "Oh, well, Ginger basically hawked this Jay that we had, right? And my singer was about to fight him, but who's gonna fight Ginger Baker? Plus probably Ginger.
That's true. Yeah.
Hold his own, right? And then when I'm telling it, it's like, well, you and I ended up at a gay bar on accident at Sunday, and ended up with lack of drugs is what killed Jimi Hendrix. It's like, And I've told that to so many people, and I love that part about folklore and about rock and roll and the nerddom of it all. And I think that is, I think that, and in this time where music has become, we're facing a spot right now where music has become, there's way more of this like wallpaper in rock and roll, right? There's so much of this stuff that's effectively designed to be instantly disposable. I mean, there's really great bands, but I feel that like rock and roll isn't at the forefront of where it used to be, you know? And I think into it, like, there's stuff you can sink your teeth into, and songs are great, right? I mean, look, songs are what it's built on, but having all of this other culture, not only in like what happened in the stories of things in the past, but also like gear. Like you and I have nerded out on so much gear. I got like 1 or 2 guitars I have to show you. Like for instance, I got this guy. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. I got this guy that I got. So this is an SG, but it's got a baritone strap neck on it, stop tailpiece, no knobs, because my friend Ernie from Body Count basically convinced me that you don't need knobs, because Ernie from Body Count has no knobs. They're just bullets that they put in here, the tip of a bullet. And then this is 265 Jaguar single coil with a wired in series. This is effectively a giant humbucker. And I mean, this thing weighs about 3 ounces and has it.
You got to put a switch on there, Schwill.
What's that?
Charlie, you got to put a switch on there, dude. I mean, how can you do that guitar and not be able to get the Jaguar bridge pickups out?
Well, because I'll tell you why.
But this one goes to 11.
Here's my point. I feel like maybe I'm not a good enough guitar player to truly use the bridge pickup section on guitars.
Give me a break.
For what?
Well, it's very cool. Do you have flat wounds on there?
I don't have flat wounds on here. What I'm going to put.
Have you ever put flat wounds on your Barry? Have you ever tried to Baritone with flat wounds?
Oh, I love them. I've actually gone to. There's a local shop here that's amazing that I've actually turned a couple people on to. Is Caveman Vintage. I don't know if you know about Caveman Vintage.
Where is it? I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's just basically, it's.
Is it in the valley?
No, it's in Boyle Heights. It's this like weird spot, but
LA since I lived there.
Yeah. No, sorry, it's in Lincoln Heights. It's in Lincoln Heights. But yeah, and I've turned a couple people onto it, but they just have like the greatest pornography equipment-wise, like ever. Like it's you know, like porn, they're fetish items, right? And so like I went in there once just on a happenstance, and like there'll be like there'll be like an old Hagstrom, and then like a Ventures, 6, and then like I saw a solid state 1960s basement that was like a cabinet that got put in there, like weird stuff that's only like the demo model of certain things, and it's like this is the guy that's doing it, and he sells all the stuff online. But they also have their own set of strings. They make flat wounds. And so I got some of them. And what I'm going to do, a buddy of mine, who's actually the guitar tech for Baby Metal and a couple other bands, he's building me one right now because he's a luthier. So he's building me a Billy Bow. So I'm going to have a Billy Bow baritone.
I've always wanted a Billy Bow. Yeah.
Building me a Billy Bow baritone, stop tail piece, telly style setup. But I'm going to put flat wounds on it. And that one's gonna be my that's gonna be my flat wound.
I find that with baritones, flat wounds are the key for me. If I use round wounds on a Barry, then it tends to sound more like late 90s new metal, and I want it to sound like 1961 truck driver music.
No.
Here, I'll show you this one. This is my baritone that Kip Elder built. And I keep it tuned B to B. It's fucking badass. And of course, got to have the Bigsby. 1 Filtertron, 1 volume knob. That's it. And the thing that really, it's one of my favorite instruments that I own, but the thing that set it off was the flat wounds. When I started using flats, it just changed the game for me on this guitar. It's really cool. So put flats on your baritone, everybody. Give it a shot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, where does the baritone come from? Like, I found out about baritones because I listened to a bunch of surf rock. And when I went back and tried to figure it out, like, you know, like, I'm a bit of a nerd. I've got, like, live records by the Association on vinyl, right? And, like, there's a guy playing a baritone on those records. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
What's that?
Sure, of course. Yeah, and it was probably Tommy Tedesco in the studio.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, I have this one Association record where they're at, like, a college coffee shop in San Francisco, and they're telling, like, the worst jokes in between sets, and everybody's going nuts for them. Like, it's 1963 version of dad jokes, and they're horrible, and I love every second of it. I've tried to rip them, like, they just don't work. And it's so bizarre to see, like, a terrible joke.
Maybe your delivery's off, Charlie.
What's that?
Nah, so maybe it's your delivery.
Oh, well, probably is my delivery. You know, I love seeing some of that stuff too, because I would love for stuff to, like, come back around. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Brian, a couple weeks ago on here, and he was telling me he was the guy on Shining Time Station that was in the station. So, like, he was, like, sort of the adult on the show, and he, back in the day, when Led Zeppelin's first U.S. tour, could not convince his friends to go with him to go see Led Zeppelin because apparently they were, like, an overrated bad blues band.
Yeah.
And it was like a club experience where they sat on the floor and they basically, like, Indian style in front of the stage, and, like, that was the way the gigs were. Which is,
you see videos of it. It's mind blowing. It's like it's funny when you look at how things move through time, a way that, you know, an audience consumes music. And I also am always fascinated by how you can hear what drugs were popular at any given time based on your record collection.
Yeah.
You know, when the sort of Haight-Ashbury acid and weed thing turned into that sort of speed and smack Hell's Angel-y thing, you know, and then and all the way up until, like, you know, certain types of hip hop, when you know, a number of years ago, when, like, Purple Drank became the thing, and you would start to hear all that kind of slowed down hip hop. I like to be able to hear. I mean, I'm using drugs as an example. It's really all environmental considerations. Drugs just being the obvious ones. I love to hear that in music, especially that's being made by very young people.
yeah.
I still like music made by very young people the best, which is kind of, you know, ironic considering I am not very young.
Well, I mean, hey, look, even if you're not very young, you're still a trendsetter. As far as I'm concerned, Mike Watt has been stealing your look for at least 3 years now.
We've both been stealing Isaac Asimov's.
Well, you know, that's what you got to do. You're only as good as who you steal from, right? Like, I think that's one of the great quotes.
And I go from Isaac Asimov.
I like it. No, I think that's a great point too, because, like, not only, like, one of the things that when I first really started to get into it was when I was hearing the sonic differences between, like, records of a certain era, and, like, as more cocaine comes into the mix, you can hear the, like, low end basically disappear on all the records, right? And it's just like,
horrible.
Where's the funk? Where's I got nothing here. Like,
It's horrible.
It always surprised me, like, for instance, on, like, the early Metallica records, everybody's like, Cliff Burton's amazing, and you listen to those records, and he's essentially inaudible on, like, Kill 'Em All, right? Like, I mean, it's like one of the greatest guys, and he gets, like, this much space in the mix.
Yeah, it's not for me. I don't. I never enjoyed those kind of mixes. I still don't. I got to have some groove. I got to have some ass to it, or it just leaves me cold. You know, we're working on a bunch of new Ludes material now, and it's. I mean, that becomes part of the fun. I mean, it's so weird right now because, you know, how do we move forward with bands? It's like, what do we do? You know, we're not gigging, obviously.
Right.
And, you know, we're, you know, so how elaborate do you push the live stream or the video thing? How often do you record? How often do you release shit? You know, the whole idea of an album has been dead for years and years and years. I'm always kind of freaked out when people put albums out. It just seems dumb right now. It's like, you know, put out a couple songs. A couple weeks later, put out a couple more songs. It's like we're still sort of tied to this idea of having to have 10, 12 songs as some collection, and here's the album. And I think it's sad that art is dead. It's super depressing, but it is dead. So let's stop pretending like, you know, oh, here's side B.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
No, absolutely. To your point, I was talking about this with somebody else earlier this week. When it was one of my friends, and I was saying, like, I feel like it's cyclical, right? Like, you know, there was a time when if you were on the AM station in Chicago, 70% of America heard you, right? And then you had tours of bands where, like, that kind of got overtaken by, you'd have, like, the company putting, like, 10 bands on the bill, and everybody would just play the 2 or 3 singles that they had, right? And then and then you had, you know, 1967, and Led Zeppelin basically refuses to do television performances and refuses to do, like, anything short of a full-length LP, no singles at all. And then that leads into long-form FM, you know, and you have all these cycles. And very much how, like, in the mid-'80s, like, if you were on MTV, if you got your video on MTV, like,
you were good to go.
That was everything, right? I mean, you sold 1 million records or whatever it was, right? And then you had and then that, you know, you have, like, all the radio stations conglomerate, and then you have the great equalizer of, like, Napster, right? Which just destroyed all of that model. And then you have all these people that continue to try to force that long form version. But to your point about, like, what bands should do, like, for instance, what we're doing, I'll put it to our ethos, is we have this record, right? When we recorded out at Rancho with Dave and a couple other, we also went to this one other studio with our buddy Tiny Bubbles, great drummer guy, and he's got a great studio too, and Big Liberty Spikes, good fella, and we're just basically releasing a single, like, every month and a half, something like that. Like, there's no reason, if we released all 10 songs right away, like, why would anybody give a shit about, like, song 8, right?
Yeah, especially 3 weeks later.
Yeah, especially, yeah. And, like, I mean, mind you, our full length is about 32 minutes because our set is about that long. And so our full length album is basically just an extended version of our set with a couple more things, right? When you're in the studio, things maybe it's a little slightly slower down because you got less, you know, whatever going on. But, you know, our set was designed to be under half an hour. I always said that the Beatles, when they played the Hollywood Bowl, they did 28 minutes. We're go a full 30. And so our set was always designed like that. So our live record there was a conscious effort to keep it, if we do put it out on a 12-inch, like, it can fit both sides without making it so long that you lose that bass response. Because just like you, I need the butt and the face, not to completely rip off old DOD grunge pedals, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I need both of that. And as far as the live streams, like, I thought you guys did one of the best live streams that I've seen, the thing at Will's Pub, which...
Oh, yeah, we did a good one. So I'm not even going to be falsely modest about that. We did the best Will's live stream. I know we did.
Yeah.
It was because that, you know, a lot of those things I was seeing were just looking like watching a band rehearse. And I'm just not interested in that in the least. It's just boring as shit. So, you know, doing a canned crowd that was ridiculously way too large and cutting in a weird intro commercial thing and having some fake ass fire, at least it gave it some kind of flow, some kind of spectacle to it. And, you know, and I've seen so many bands doing these live streams that they don't even structure it like a set. They'll play a song and they'll be like, okay, this next song's called blah, blah, blah. 1, 2, 3, and then play that and then do it again. I'm just like fucking bored.
Yeah.
Do something fun with the medium. If all of a sudden this is the world we're in, then we're going to have to figure out how to do it and do it creative and do it fun and make it cool. That's what we have always been tasked with throughout history. The musicians and the artists have to take the existing set of circumstances and make them cooler. So, you know, anybody who's complaining too, I mean, we all complain because shit sucks right now, but if I think that if you're not trying to look for the opportunities in that chaos, then you're doing it wrong. I don't expect that I will personally succeed in making any big noise on that level, but I'm sure as fuck gonna try.
Absolutely. You know, I completely agree with your take. Like, we've been asked to do a lot of those, and we turned a lot of them down. I've done, since this all started, I have taken basically 2 solo acoustic gigs as to represent the band, and they were both charitable situations where there was a lot of that structure behind it. It wasn't just like, hey, we're going on the thing, because let's be honest, it sounds like shit out of your phone. You know, you can't get the hype, and there's no feedback. Like, as a performer on stage, half the juice is just seeing like what the feedback is, whether or not you're dodging fruit after the set, or like everybody's enjoying it. Like, there's that exchange of energy, right? And I feel like a lot of musicians get used to that, or entertainers in general get that exchange, right? I think Dave Chappelle was talking about doing drive-in comedy shows. Instead of laughing, you can like lay on your horn. Like, that's some feedback. You know what I mean? And those shows were interesting because they were structured. So it was like a live show with some like things that were going on. But I see all these bands that just like, they're doing like a weekly live from the rehearsal space on a Friday. It's like, like, are they new songs? Like, because that's kind of interesting. Or like, you know,
We've been doing a good job with it. Clutch has done a really good job with it. But I mean, that doesn't surprise me in the least, because they've been the kings of their own world for so long. But they have just kind of slowly, they stuck their toe in doing some shit from the rehearsal room, just little test things. They dialed in their audio over a couple of weeks. They got their video together. They got their lighting together and all that. And now, boom, they're doing full-blown sets where other bands come play and shit. It's impressive.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I was talking with Dave, and he said his friends at the Bowery Ballroom have been doing something. I don't know if you've been keeping up with that, but they've got live sets there like every week now, which is
that's good.
Fucking killer. Like they've got some really great bands, and they basically took the whole live venue and they just turned their entire thing into being a web series. You know what I mean? And we got to do something. I love your point about like you have to find what the medium is, like make the most of it. You know what I'm saying?
You don't have a choice.
Yeah. Like, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the drive-in shows. Blue Oyster Cult did one in New Hampshire recently, and it was just a trip to just see all these cars and and hear honking in between songs. It's like there's something kind of endearing about it, but it's really surreal too. You know?
Yeah, because you're sitting there with your girl or whatever, and then you turn like your car radio on to the thing. So hopefully, like you got a decent. Now, here's the question: if you're gonna go see Blue Oyster Cult, do you rent like a nice car to go to that? Like, do you get like, I don't know, like an old Chevy to go? Because like I feel like I'm not taking my Prius to a Blue Oyster Cult show. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got.
I think you rent the exact old limo that's on the cover of the On Your Feet or On Your Knees live album.
Will that fit in the parking spot? Because I know that they're like slightly.
If you show up in that car, they'll make it fit. They'll roll you right to the front, man. People will be taking selfies in front of you.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, you know what? I don't even know if I told you this. My sort of quarantine, my bright spot in all of this bullshit. There's a new Blue Oyster Cult record coming out in October, and I actually played on it.
Really?
I played the theremin, Charlie.
Nice. I'm
the theremin guy on one of the songs. Yeah.
Of course.
And I was teasing Buck. I said to Buck, it's like, be honest, I got this opportunity because I'm the only person you know who owns a theremin. It's like, yeah, kind of, but hey, still, it's still good.
When Buck calls you up and says like, hey, can you pull out that weird box with the antennas on it? And you're like, I can do it for you, but yeah, sure, send it over.
That had been our joke for years. When it'd be like, oh yeah, we're playing, tonight at some, in Maryland or something. And my joke would always be, which door do I load my theremin in? And so we had this sort of ongoing theremin joke. And I think, they were finishing up the record, and he's like, this one song could use a little Day the Earth Stood Still bullshit in the background. So call Nolan.
I love it. I love that you're the go-to theremin player for Blue Oyster Cult. I mean, that is
I started to think it's like if you look at a small, like let's call it the first quarter of 2020, I may be the highest paid thereminist in America for the first quarter of 2020.
I love it. You know, there's so many like that. That's amazing. That reminded me of like how skewed things are. You know what the #1 box office movie is for 2020?
I don't.
Bad Boys for Life outdid everything else because it came out like in early January, so it had a full 2.5 month cycle inside of theaters. So
that makes sense.
Lawrence and Will Smith, #1 lead actors in a movie in 2020 over every.
Bring on the giant meteor. Hey, before we wrap this up, I gotta show you one of them.
Okay, yeah, show me something.
Have I shown you the Swamp Angel Esquire?
Oh, I've seen pictures. Yeah. This is one of the sexiest guitars I've seen ever, man. Walk us through.
It's something it is over the top, but it's an Esquire. And this you can't really see the top. I'm literally using the glow from a computer monitor for light. This is actual alligator skin. You know, and it's the Swamp Angel. It's the ugliest guitar I own, but holy fuck balls, does it play and sound great. And it's like you're talking about with your SG baritone thing. You know, I got one goddamn pickup on there, and it's all this thing ever needs. This is light as a feather, but this is my new favorite right now. I've kind of, you know, I went Gretsch crazy for a while, and I still love playing the Gretches, but right now this little Esquire has been rocking my world, man.
I love it.
We've been using it in everything.
Where did you find that thing?
It just fell ass backwards. My friend Eric Mann, who owns Blackbird Vintage Music, dear friend of mine, he ran into it, and it was in his shop. And my wife and I had just celebrated our wedding anniversary, and because we're dorks, we went to Gatorland here in Orlando because our friend Savannah is one of a very dear friend of ours, is one of the main like herpetologists over there. And so we went and we had fun, and Eric happened to get this ridiculous guitar like the day before that, and he's like, "You have to have this thing. You have it's a, you know, this is the anniversary guitar."
I love it.
And well, there it is. And man, it's a goer, Charlie. So it just screamed.
2 questions about that guitar. #1, when you get sweaty, how does the finish on the guitar on the Gator work for like your hand? Like, does it stick or is it nice and smooth?
No, it's smooth. It's smooth, but I mean, you know, you get over that shit. You know, though sometimes I would wonder, like Paul Stanley with like the cracked mirror and the rhinestone studded Iceman, that had to just cheese grater his forearm, right? I mean, it had to.
You know, not everybody's a forward thinker like Mr. Gibbons. Not everybody throws on giant like shag on top of their Explorer, because that's probably the most comfortable guitar to play.
Right. I've actually played those guitars, the furry Deans, the furry Bolins.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're something. They're not really playable, but you can play them sort of.
Yeah, like it's for a music video. Like, there's no way that, like, you know, I say it reminded me of ZZ Top stuff. Like, I saw them play a couple of years ago somewhere around here, right? Some like weird like club, you know, whatever. And you can tell the people are really good at their job, not just being a rock star, but being like the entertainer, being the song and dance man, not being more than an alcohol salesman, right? Being the guy that putting on pants and going out and dealing with people, like being that person. It's like in between songs, he's telling stories and jokes that were as good. Like, I was almost bummed that, like, they're going into like, you know, I mean, not bummed. I mean, I'll take any time ZZ Top playing, but like, holy shit, can you make that story a little bit longer? Then what happened? Like, I love that stuff, and I think that's a showmanship thing that is. I hope that comes back, especially with this thing where people. I think people are going to be less likely to be able to rely on their friends showing up to a club, especially in this time, but that doesn't matter at all. The people that are using this platform and using this time to really hone their craft, the personalities, those larger than life things, like that stuff's gonna come out. And man,
well, yeah, absolutely. And you gotta think bigger than what is traditional music performance. I mean, I know for me, I'm thinking I may try to do like sort of a talk show and music thing with a house band. Have you seen what Donita from L7's doing with her thing, the High Low show?
oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's great.
I'm pretty much just gonna steal her idea completely.
Do it. No, absolutely. I think it's so good. And Lena Licaro is doing something like that, pretty similar too, a writer for LA Weekly. But I mean, Lena's, it's about your reach. You know what I'm saying? And what I love is actually what we're going to be doing in September is Becky is basically going to rip off something similar to that. And she's like contacting like Sammy from Fang and like the lead singer from like La Muerte. And like some old chick that she used to go around with that's in like Portugal that was like a winner of Eurovision 78 or something like that. Like, I think it's so fun for having people using this platform to do something, because ultimately at the end of the day, like you have to provide something more for people to care. You know what I mean? And it's like, where's the cool merch? Where's the DIY stuff? I mean, obviously you can't do street teams and rely on the same records. Like, it's so funny the shift between like what's the next flyer, what's the next gig, what's the next town. You know, like there's been such this big focus where it's almost a blessing, I'll tell you, because like we were sort of in this like hurry to get this record out, and now it's much more like, well, let's make it as cool as we can. You know, like we had this song that was done, and I was like, you know what, like if I could get like all those weird ideas of like, you know what I need is I need to get Florida's premier theremin player on this one track. You know what I'm saying? Like that, those decisions. I'm so excited for the records that are going to be coming out in the next 6 months.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So the Ludes will have something finally. I kind of have had this, my trio, the Ludes. I've had this sort of attitude for years and years and years where I didn't want anything to come out. I didn't want this band to have any sort of anything to do with commerce in any way. There's something, I don't know, maybe I was just being a frickin' too punk rock hippie about it. But now it's just like, fuck it. Here's all the shit we've done over our 300 years.
Well, I love it.
You know?
I mean, I still have like Gypsy Witch and Brown Liquor, Brown Woman. Like, those are hooks, man. You know, and I remember, like, I'll tell you this, an embarrassing, not embarrassing, I'll say a coming of age thing that happens to me every now and again. And it hasn't happened in a few years. But every now and again, I would hear a song that's like, oh, shit, the Ludes are just covering this band. Like, I had no idea, like, Stay Clean. Like there's 3 or 4 songs that I can point to where they're, like, several years apart where I was like, oh, shit, like, that's just a cover.
So the biggie was always for us was Masters Reality, She Got Me, which we've done a million times. And there was a thing in the Orlando Weekly, which is exactly like the LA Weekly. I think it's even the same parent company.
Yeah. Asheville.
There was a whole thing where local musicians were talking about other local music, your favorite song from other local musicians. And Tommy Wynn, you know Tommy.
Yeah.
One of the heavier hitters in this region said, "Yeah, I really love the Ludes. She Got Me. That's one of my like, dude, that's a cover."
You know, it's funny you bring that up. That was sort of an icebreaker moment when I went out to Rancho with Dave, because I was telling him about how like all this stuff, and I was like, it didn't even occur to me that like, of course, like with Chris, like his neighbor wrote the damn song. Like, you know, I love just like the cyclical thing of it all. But yeah, I mean, when you guys play that stuff, I love it when like bands can turn you on to things. And I hope that people can use this opportunity to expand their thing. Like you see so many bands will do like, well, this is the live band. Well, introduce me to something else. Like, you know, it hit me to something cool, you know, and I think I've gotten through most of the Ludes set that I've identified are your songs versus other ones that you've appropriated.
Yeah, I mean, the band really only does like 2 or 3 covers.
Yeah.
But I'm too lazy to, and not just me, the band is too lazy to really. When we do covers, we tend to do tribute shows. You know, we did a pretty cool Cars tribute show, done a Thin Lizzy tribute show, you know, shit like that. then we'll get down and we'll learn it. But those, when we do those tribute shows, those songs never stay in our set. We've never played Candy-O again, and I love that song with every ounce of my soul. But it just, there's no reason to play it after we've tributed it, done a full thing.
Like, I think, if I remember correctly, because I was not necessarily of sound mind, but I think I learned 3 songs of Dio on a ukulele
Yes, you did.
At Will's Pub. And if you asked me to play Holy Diver on a ukulele today, it would take about a month for me to figure it out.
Well, when Ronnie James Dio died, that was a great gig. I really wanted to do a thing where the kind of like the indie rockers and the punk rockers and the alt people in the scene paid tribute to Dio, where it wasn't just all the metal people.
Yeah.
As much as I love metal, and I freaking have a huge amount of respect for metal musicians, and Ronnie James Dio I loved him completely.
Of course.
But I really wanted some different angles on that material. So it was fun, and you played ukulele.
Yeah. I think there's like 2 pictures from that show that I still see that show up in like my Facebook, like reminders of another lifetime. And I've got like jeans that are torn with holes in them. There's one with you like in a nice suit, like introducing things, and I look a god awful mess. And that's who I was.
I could, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And my life has turned around, and I owe very much a lot of that, to you and to your wife for.
Well, I'm proud of you, Charlie. You've really, it's so funny, and I hope I'm not telling any secrets here, but you did the opposite of what most people would do. You moved to LA to get clean.
Yeah. I moved to LA to get clean and then met all
how the fuck is that
rock stars. Like, how do I end up?
And it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Like somehow.
Many years ago. Somehow
I moved to LA to get clean, then met everybody that used to work at Cole. And then met everybody.
I don't want to talk about that. That's too weird. That's too weird. You moved to LA to get clean, and you wind up, hanging out with all these people I knew back in the day when I was fucked up. That was a good time though. Call was that's the last thing I'll get into. That was a pretty magical little spot in LA back in the 90s. JJ Blair's rehearsal spot that he owned, Cole Rehearsal, and the artists that went through there, and it was like. Myself, I worked there. Rick Reddick, and Angie Scarpa, my dear friend Angie, and it was Gersh. Well, he didn't really work there, but he rented his kits out from there and was part of the scene. But the artists that went through there, from the top of the heap, A-list major superstars to every local band, and all of them would sort of interact in the middle, around the pool table and stuff, and it was really an amazing time. We'll do this again sometimes, and we'll get a couple other people, get JJ and get Rick and Angie on here. We'll all tell Cole stories.
Oh, I love it. Like I remember sitting at Canner's Deli with you and Angie. You probably hadn't seen each other, I think, for like 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, we haven't.
And I'm basically a fly on the wall of you telling this story about how you had to fly to some South Pacific country because their like 10,000 records was platinum, and like your pager goes off at LAX because some band is in the live room and they can't figure out how to turn on the PA, and it's the Kiss reunion and they're all out of makeup, and then they're like creeping on people at the pool table. Well,
it was crazy. It was great. It was great times. I learned so much from those people in that time.
Yeah.
It was. That's a good one for you to do, Charlie. You get that crew together, tell some Cole stories. You'll get a nice piece of LA history. I'll tell you that.
But I got to do it. I'll hit up Angie and them too. Well, man, we got like a minute 30 before Instagram's going to kick us off. So I just want to say thank you very much, man. I miss you. I know I'll see you next summer. I wish I could see you sooner. You're a great guy, and I owe a lot of what I have these days to you and to your wife. And that's not lost on me. And not only was it the time where I came over and you guys helped me make the decisions I had to make, but I remember you heckling me at the bar at like Will's Pub because you were like, "Well, did your week start today? Because you're fucked up right now." And like, it just meant a lot, and I really appreciate it, man. And I hope you and her are good. And I will vicariously try to stay as much as I can involved through the Instagram and through the Facebook. And much love to your cats and to your gear.
Love you, Charlie. Cheers, my friend.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
See you later.